Chapter 15. The fire had burned low, casting long shadows across the parlour walls. Daisy sat stiffly in the armchair, her hands folded in her lap, as Reverend Hargrave stood by the window, his silhouette framed by the fading light. "I'll be leaving in the morning," he said, his voice clipped, almost formal. "There's nothing more for me to do here." Daisy nodded, unsure what to say. She had expected this, but the finality of it still stung. Her father turned, his eyes sharp but not entirely unkind. "If you had any sense," he said, "you'd marry Dr. Weston. That man is a court catch, better than you could ever hope for." Daisy flinched. His words landed like slivers of glass. Not intentionally cruel, perhaps, but it cut nevertheless. "If there's to be a wedding," he continued, "your Uncle William will perform the ceremony. Let him know. I trust his judgment." He didn't wait for a response. He simply nodded once, as if the matter was settled, and left the room. Daisy sat in silence long after he'd gone. The fire crackled softly, but its warmth didn't reach her. She felt hollow, like a decision had been made around her, without her. She didn't cry. She didn't speak. She simply stared at the empty chair across from her and wondered if love had ever been part of the equation in what her father felt for daughters. The next morning, Daisy awoke to quiet. The house was still, the sun barely risen. She dressed slowly, her limbs heavy, and stepped into the hallway. Her father was gone. No note, no goodbye. Just the absence of his coat from the rack, and the silence where his footsteps used to echo. Daisy stood there for a long moment, the emptiness pressing in. Then Aunt Eleonora appeared from the kitchen, her apron dusted with flour, a smile soft and full of warmth. "Good morning, darling," she said, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind Daisy's ear. "Come sit. I've made cinnamon buns." Daisy nodded, her throat tight. She followed Eleonora into the kitchen, the scent of sugar and spice wrapping around her like balm. The kitchen was warm with the scent of rising dough and cinnamon. Daisy sat at the table, her hands wrapped around a mug of tea, watching Aunt Eleonora knead bread with practiced ease. The rhythm of it, the press, fold, turn, was soothing, like a hymn without words. "I never thought I'd be here," Daisy said quietly. "Not like this." Eleonora glanced up, her eyes kind. "Darling, none of us ever do. Life has a way of surprising us. Sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully." Daisy nodded, her gaze drifting to the window. Outside, the garden shimmered with morning dew. "Do you think people really get second chances?" she asked, desperate for her aunt to say yes. Eleonora smiled, brushing flour from her hands. "I think grace is made of second chances. And third. And fourth. Family isn't just blood. It's who stays when things fall apart. It's who helps you rebuild." Daisy swallowed the lump rising in her throat. "I don't know if I deserve that." "Oh, Daisy, darling girl," Eleonora said, coming to sit beside her, smelling of cinnamon. "Deserving has nothing to do with it. Grace isn't earned, it's given." They sat in silence for a moment, the warmth of the kitchen wrapping around them like a shawl. "Pete Weston," Daisy said suddenly. "He's different." Eleonora's eyes twinkled. "That he is. He lives on his own just a few blocks from the seminary. Keeps a tidy little house with too many books and not enough curtains. And he can boil an egg, mind you." Daisy smiled faintly. "He sounds intimidating, but that he is not," Eleonora countered. "He is studious, but he is also easygoing. He's cheerful, thoughtful too. The sort of man who remembers birthdays and brings soup when someone's ill." Daisy looked down at her tea. "I don't feel anything romantic, not like before." "That's not a flaw," Eleonora said gently. "It's wisdom. Romance fades, steadiness stays. Daisy nodded slowly. She didn't know what she wanted yet. But this conversation, this warmth, felt like a beginning. And maybe, just maybe, beginnings were enough. Chapter 16. The morning was crisp, the sky a pale blue brushed with wisps of cloud. Daisy walked slowly down Willow Lane, her boots tapping against the cobblestones, her heart a quiet drumbeat beneath her unbuttoned coat. She carried no expectations, only curiosity and a cautious willingness to see what came next. Pete Weston's house stood near the end of the lane, tucked between a pair of tall maples whose leaves had turned gold and rust. It was modest, with ivy climbing the porch railings and a small garden bed that looked recently tended. A stack of books sat on the windowsill, their spines faded from sun. She hesitated at the gate, then stepped through it, and Pete opened the door before she could knock, as if he'd been waiting, not anxiously, but attentively. "Good morning, Daisy," he said, his voice warm. "Morning," Pete Daisy replied, her breath visible in the chill. He stepped aside. "Come in, Daisy, I've made tea." The house was neat, but in an untidy way, a kind of disorder that spoke of life rather than neglect. Books lay forgotten on windowsills, another balanced on the seat of a chair, as if someone had left mid-sentence. The kitchen held no curtains, only sunlight spilling through the bare panes, bright and unfiltered. A chipped vase stood on the table, cradling a handful of wild flowers that leaned as if tired from the day. Mismatched cups waited on the table, their edges worn smooth by years of use. There was no grandeur here, no polished silver or gleaming chandeliers, only warmth and the quiet ease of a home that had been lived in with laughter. The air carried the faint scent of bergamot from the teapot on the stove, mingling with the smoky whisper of a fire crackling in the hearth. Soft light pooled across the floorboards, catching on the worn edges of rugs and the scuffed legs of chairs. It was a house without pretense, but full of thoughtfulness, every imperfection a testament to comfort. Daisy sat on the edge of a faded armchair, its cushions sagging from years of comfort, while Pete poured tea into mismatched cups, his movements unhurried. The steam curled upward, fragrant and familiar, and for a moment the quiet felt like something rare, something safe. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he said, handing her a cup. "I wasn't sure either," she admitted. They sipped in silence for a moment, the fire filling the space between words. "I live alone," Pete said. "Not because I prefer solitude, but because I've been waiting for the right kind of company." Daisy looked up, surprised by the honesty. "I don't mean that as a proposal," he added quickly, then laughed. "It's just truth." She nodded. "I've been surrounded by people most of my life, but I've never felt more alone than I did back home, except for my younger sister." Pete leaned forward slightly, his elbows propped up on his thighs. "And now that you are here, is there—" Daisy glanced around the room. "Here feels quieter, safer, but I'm still figuring out what that means." He smiled. "That's fair. I'm not here to rush you." They talked for a long while, about books, about Silver Springs, about the seminary and the students he taught. Pete spoke with a quiet passion, not to impress but simply to share. His words carried the weight of someone who loved what he did, and Daisy found herself listening more deeply than she had in weeks. He leaned back in his chair, often laughter spilling easily as he told stories of his students, young men from every walk of life, each with their quirks, ambitions, and hopes. She reveled in his warm and unguarded laughter. It filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. When her turn came, Daisy spoke of Petunia, her willful, mischievous nature, the way she could turn a dull day into chaos with a single grin. But Daisy kept the rest locked inside the fear that Petunia's bright spirit would soon be dimmed by an early marriage, a sentence brought on by Daisy herself. That truth stayed buried, heavy and unspoken, even as her voice softened with affection for her sister. When she stood to leave, Pete walked her to the door. "Thank you," she said, "for the tea, for the laughter." "You're welcome any time," he replied. "No expectations, just conversation." As Daisy stepped back onto Willow Lane, the wind tugged gently at her coat. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this: Pete Weston was not a man who demanded. He was a man who waited until you were ready. Later that afternoon, sun spilled golden light across the kitchen tiles as Daisy sat at the table, absently tracing the rim of her teacup. Eleanora moved with quiet grace, folding lemons and humming a hymn under her breath. The scent of rosemary and lemon lingered in the air from the roast she prepared earlier. Eleanora did not ask how her visit with Pete went. She just gave a warm glance and said, "You're back, darling," and offered her tea. Now in the warmth of the kitchen, Daisy said, "Pete's house was not what I expected." "Yes?" Eleanora prompted gently. "It was really special," Daisy admitted. "Warm, thoughtful. He has stacks of books everywhere. No curtains in his kitchen, just light and paper and laughter." Eleanora smiled. "That does sound like Pete, I think," Daisy continued, hesitating. "I think I could see myself living there, in that house, with him." Eleanora came to sit beside her, folding her hands gently. "Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks, darling. Sometimes it grows like ivy, slow, steady, and strong." Daisy nodded, but her brow furrowed. "I keep thinking about Petunia, about what Father said, that he'd marry her off as soon as she's 16. I feel like it's my fault, like I broke something in him." Eleanora's face softened, but she didn't flinch. "William spoke to your father. That was part of the agreement. Petunia will not be married off, not unless she chooses it herself. She's safe, Daisy. You don't have to carry that weight." Daisy blinked, the relief so sudden it made her chest ache. "Father promised." She was incredulous. "He did," Eleanora said. William was firm on that. "Petunia will have time. She'll have a choice." Daisy exhaled, her shoulders sagging. "I didn't know how to ask. I was afraid of the answer." Eleanora reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Daisy's ear. "You've been brave for so long, darling. It's time to be gentle with yourself." Daisy looked down at her tea, then back up. "Do you think Pete would want me as a wife?" she asked hesitantly. Eleanora's eyes twinkled. "Oh, darling, it was a yes from him after your very first meeting. He's just been waiting on you, but he didn't want to rush you." Daisy felt something shift inside her. Not certainty, not yet, but possibility. And for the first time since she saw the truth in Philip Avery's face all those weeks ago, she didn't feel like she was walking towards the future alone. And the thought of Ellie McTeer suddenly rushed up on her. Daisy closed her eyes in a silent prayer for Ellie and her baby, wherever they may find themselves. When she looked up, she found Eleanora's tender gaze on her, and Daisy felt like she was finally coming home. Chapter 17. The house was quiet. The kind of hush that settles after supper and lingers like a lullaby. Daisy sat at the writing desk in the guest room, a single candle flickering beside her, casting soft shadows across the page. Outside, the wind rustled through the ivy, and the scent of fallen leaves drifted in from the garden. She dipped the pen into the inkwell and began to write. "Dear Petunia, I hope this letter finds you well. I think of you every day, your laugh, your stubbornness, the way you always knew when I was hiding something. I miss you more than I can say. There's so much to tell you, and I hardly know where to begin. I've met someone. His name is Pete Weston, and he's a clergyman too, but a different kind. He's quiet, clever, and cheerful in a way that feels safe. We've spoken a few times now, and I think I could grow to care for him. And Eleanora says it was a yes from him after our first meeting. though he's been waiting for me to decide. There's talk of vows. Nothing is set yet, but it's coming. I'll be expected to meet his family soon. I'm nervous, of course, but also curious. I wonder what kind of people raised someone like Pete. My belly is starting to show. Just a little, enough that I've begun wearing looser dresses and avoiding mirrors. It's strange, this quiet change. I feel like I'm becoming someone new, someone I don't fully recognize yet. But I'm trying to be gentle with her. I want you to know something important. Auntie Leonora told me that Father made a promise to Uncle William that you would not be married off, not unless you choose it. You are safe, Petunia. That weight I've been carrying, the fear, it's lighter now. And I want you to feel that too. So, please write back when you can. Tell me everything. About the boys, about the garden, about the way the light falls in our room at sunset. I miss the sound of your voice. With hugs and all my love, Daisy. She folded the letter carefully, sealing it with wax and a pressed sprig of lavender. As she placed it on the windowsill for posting in the morning, Daisy felt something shift inside her. A quiet hope, fragile but real. She was building something. Not just a future, but a bridge back to the sister she loved and missed.